Hi, this is Ross Waddell again with part 3 of the video tutorials for the Wonderfest Contest Entry Management System. And in part 3, we're going to talk about user accounts and security. So let's get started with the security group permissions. So there's two security groups which control what you can do within the application. The first one is called a full data user. So by full data, I mean they can edit model entry records, and that includes adding, editing, or deleting model entry records. They can view the contest statistics, how many records have been entered. They can run some reports. They can find out how many golds, how many silvers, how many bronzes, how many merits. They can print the judges form, which you hand out to the judges for them to go and mark the or do the judging for the models. They can view a report that shows how many of the model records are missing photos, and if there's any that don't have a table number assignment, and of course the contest winners list. They can do all that, and they can do the model photo capture, so they can take the photos from their computers, and also the quick capture, and the bulk photo assignment. Those last two sort of go together, but we'll deal with that probably in a later tutorial. Then there's the admins group. Now the admin can do everything the full data users can do, plus they can do things like initialize contest year info, which we did in part 2 of these tutorials. They can edit the medal category and sponsored award info. Again, we showed that in part 2. They can import and export data records, and you'll see that in a later tutorial about how to use more than one machine to do, if you want to use more than one machine to speed up the data entry process, admins can do the import and export. They can print the award ceremony presentation winners list, and of course, along with that, generate the PowerPoint presentation slide deck. And then the final thing is they can manage users. So they can add a new user, they can delete a user, they can change a user's security group assignment, they can create a new security group if they so choose. Just one thing to go over, as I mentioned in the first part of this video tutorials, only authorized users can log into the application, so you're authenticated via user ID and password. Once a user logs in, they can change that password for themselves for even greater security. So I provide 3 accounts out of the box, Drew, Lee, and John. Once you log in, you can change that password that only you know. Nobody knows that password except you. Only then can you log in. The thing you should note is the application is installed on individual machines, and any changes to security groups, anything, adding a new user or changing their password, only applies to that machine. If you go to another machine, you won't necessarily see those changes, so you'd have to do it again. Just something to be aware of. So let's just log into the application, and I'll show you what I mean. Again, this is just the PowerPoint warning about running a macro. And then I'll log in as Drew, who's an administrator. Click the Open button, and we'll see the splash screen. That's over in about a minute and a half. And then you'll see also that we didn't get prompted about initializing a contest year, for those of you who joined me in part 2 of these tutorials, because we've initialized the 2010 year. It's already done, so you don't get prompted for it. So if you go into Tools and User and Group Accounts, this is primarily where you would, if you wanted to do anything with user and group accounts, this is where you would be. So if you wanted to create a new user, you just click the New button. If you wanted to delete a user, you click the Delete. And if you wanted to clear the password, so let's say somebody changed their password and they completely forgot what it was, you could go into, say, John, for example, you could clear their password. The next time they log in, then they don't enter a password at all. It would just be blank. And then once they're in, they can change it again to whatever they want. I logged in as Drew, so if I wanted to change my password, I could do it quite easily right now. There's also another way to do that off the Tools menu, but you can do it here as well if I wanted to change the password. One thing to note, do not, under any circumstances, ever delete the admin, administrator, or developer. These first 3 accounts, do not ever delete them. It'd be preferable if you didn't change their passwords either, because the developer is the account I created for myself to, if I need to make any code changes or report changes on the fly. If you change that, I won't be able to get in unless you clear my password. But definitely do not delete these accounts. I don't have control over what shows up in this drop-down. This is actually a Microsoft Access 2003 form, so I can't filter it and only show you like Drew, John, and Lee, for example. I can't do that. So please, please, please do not delete these top 3 accounts. You can see that, let's just go to Drew. You see he's a member of the users in the admins group. Everybody gets associated to the users group, so you don't even need to worry about it nor care. If you were just a member of the users group, as is the admin, you actually can't even log into the application. It won't do anything. You have no permissions if you're just a member of the users group. At a minimum, you need to be a member of the full data users group, so you can see that here. Unless they're associated to at least that group, they won't be able to log in and do anything. Drew, for example, you can see is an admin, so he's part of the admins group. So he has these are the available groups on the left-hand side here. And same with John, he's also an admin. So if you wanted to, you could create a new user. If you wanted to split the data entry and have somebody else, you could do that. It's kind of cool to create unique user IDs rather than everybody using their own, because you can see down at the bottom here where it says created by and last updated by. If there was a model entry record, you would know who created it and who edited this record based on their user ID. So that's kind of cool if you want to keep track of that. You can print the users and groups in case you wanted to just keep that off to the side somewhere for later use. You can do that. The Groups tab, if you wanted to create a new group, you would do it here, but typically there's no reason to do that. And again, we talked about the change password. However, that is exposed right here. So typically, rather than go through the user and group accounts to change your own password, if you logged in and said, I want to change my password, I know what the default is that Ross created when he created the application, but I want to change it to something else, then you can do it here. So it tells you who you're logged in as, and you type in your old password, you type in your new password, and again, your new password, click OK. The next time you log in, that would apply. If you reset your password, if, let's say, Drew reset the password for John, for example, and John logged in, he wouldn't enter anything into the password field. It would be blank. He would log in. He would come into here. He would see his name, John. For old password, he'd leave blank, and then he'd enter his new password in the 2 bottom fields and click OK. But we're not going to do that right now. And that's it. Again, typically, that's it for that part. Or that was adding and deleting users. We actually jumped ahead there to show you in the application itself. There isn't really much to users, accounts, and security. Like I said, you may not, in fact, ever have a need to use that. You may just use those 3 accounts. But it's here, the video tutorial, if you need it. So join me in part 4, where we'll talk about how to use the application on more than one PC to speed up the data entry during the first part of the model contest using the import and export feature.